It is, of course, thick glass, but they are incredibly fragile, obviously. And how did your grandmother come by it?
My grandfather went to many auctions when they were living at Buckingham. And
so you think he bought it at auction?
I think he bought it at auction. Yeah. He collected Venetian glass and furniture and bits and pieces of paintings.
The honey colour here is not glass at all, it is a stain. A chemist named Friedrich Egermann, working in the northern Bohemian town of Haida, perfected a silver-yellow surface stain in 1818. Fired onto a clear blank, it let the cutter slice straight back down to the colourless body underneath. That is the trick that built an industry, colour you could carve away, at a fraction of the cost of casing solid coloured glass through the whole wall.
Oxide being put into the kiln. And so the glass is clear all the way through, as opposed to English coloured glass, which is coloured right through. But they use it to a wonderful technique, this German Bohemian method. They actually, when they'd covered the glass with the yellow, this was...
Pieces like this were made for the export trade, and the great trade fairs were the shop window. Bohemian stainers won prize medals at the Great Exhibition of 1851 and at Vienna in 1873, selling into Britain by the crate. The Corning Museum of Glass in New York and the Prague Museum of Decorative Arts both hold Egermann School examples, and good covered pieces in this register still cross the London sale rooms in the low thousands.
A remarkable piece. If it were claret glass or red glass, it would in fact be worth considerably more. That is more highly prized than the yellow glass. So there it is, made in Bohemia, hand cut by one man, around about 1860 to 1870, and I suppose today at auction, you don't know what your grandfather paid for it?
No idea.
No idea. I would think that you would expect to pay at least £4,000 for it.
4,000? That's rather more than I had expected.
So, do you know a part of its history at all?
I don't really. All I really know is the fact that it was left to me by my mother. And prior to that, I believe it was given to my mother by an old aunt of hers. But apart from that, I would love to know its history.
It was just come down in the family as a...
These little chips are mosaic glass, millefiori, 1,000 flowers. Roman glass workers bundled rods of coloured glass, fused them, and sliced the bundle like a stick of seaside rock, so each cross-section bloomed with a flower. When Vesuvius buried Pompeii and Herculaneum, and the excavations opened in the 1740s, fragments like these poured onto the antiquities market. Grand tourists carried them home and had jewelers set them as keepsakes of a vanished empire.
When we turn the back over, it shows the unpolished surface. Here is how the glass would have looked. These little fragments are in their raw state. By being in the ground, glass decomposes and develops a silvery iridescence. As a result, the collectors polished them again, and by repolishing, as the Romans had done originally, the colours inside the glass come out, and these are the colours from, they all date from around about the 1st century AD. So we go going back to almost 2 millenniums, I suppose, ago. And to think
that silvery skin the collector polished away tells its own story. Buried glass slowly decays, and the surface splits into microscopic layers that scatter light into rainbows. A century later, that accidental shimmer became the holy grail of Art Nouveau. Louis Comfort Tiffany in New York and Lotz in Bohemia spent fortunes chasing it on purpose, branding it Favrile. The Corning Museum of Glass holds one of the world's foremost collections of ancient glass. Complete Roman mosaic bowls now reach 6 figures at auction.
Adding those up together, we've got a fair bit, and mounted in such a wonderful way in a period piece of jewellery which is so smart. Somewhere perhaps £6,000 to £10,000.
Heavens.
It's just lovely.
It's beautiful.
This video is brought to you by Velqo, the antique identifier app. Snap a photo of any item and Velqo gives you an instant identification and a value estimate from its database of millions of antiques and collectibles. Available free on the App Store and Google Play. Now back to the appraisals.
It comes from Kiev in Ukraine, and my grandmother bought it, I think 75, maybe 80 years ago, before the Second World War. My mother and my grandmother went to the market, to the food market, just to, weekly shop. And when they were leaving the market, all of a sudden they spotted this vase and they bought it. I don't know how much they paid. It stayed in the family all this time. It survived the Second World War. My grandfather was fighting at the front. He survived. My mother was stranded with her relatives, and she spent years after Nazi occupation. And then when they came back to Kiev...
This is the work of Emile Galle, the man who turned the French city of Nancy into the capital of Art Nouveau. Trained as a botanist before a glassmaker, he read flowers like an anatomist. At the Paris Exposition Universelle of 1889, he carried off a Grand Prix and made cameo glass the height of fashion across Europe. His Japanese friend Tokushima Hokkai, in Nancy to study forestry, schooled him in the asymmetry you can see in every stem and petal.
And by cabochon, it has everything. I mean, this vase really isn't short of anything for you. You've got these applied pads of colour onto the centres of the sunflowers. Internally, they've included foil with each pickup and colour of glass. And then the whole thing has been carved and acid cut and worked and treated to produce this beautiful piece that has influences of the Far East, influences of Japan. It's such a piece of aesthetic art, it's breathtaking. This piece is around...
Galle died of leukemia in 1904, at 58. His workshop kept producing under his name for another 30 years, and you can date those later pieces instantly. A small carved star sits beside the signature, marking glass made after the master had gone. The factory finally closed in 1936. A vase carved and signed in his own lifetime, like this one, is the prize. The Musée de l'École in Nancy and the Victoria and Albert in London both guard their best examples.
Well, it's good, but how good?
Tell us, please.
Tell us.
Well, if you had to go out and replace this vase, you are looking at something in the region of £8,000 to £12,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a bit lucky, really. I'd seen them come up at an auction, but they were just a general lot. They were valued, I think, at £50 to £70, and I pretty much knew what I thought they were. Sadly, they'd been spotted by somebody else, so they did go up in value, but managed to win the lot.
What was the price then?
Just under...
William rarely worked alone. His younger sister, Mary Beilby, enamelled beside him in the Newcastle workshop, and many pieces signed simply Beilby are very likely hers.
It's beautiful.
What you recognised them as was the work of the Beilby family, William Beilby, who were in Newcastle, 1768. It's exactly what it says on the tin. And they were Britain's leading enamellers, greatest enamellers, working exclusively on glass. And glass enamelling is done by, you get the compound powders, you get the basic colours, and then you grind these glass into powder. And then William Beilby, who did both of these glasses, I'm sure, would pick up oil on a paintbrush, mix this powdered glass up onto the paintbrush, and then paint each colour on one by one, firing them each time, because each...
The name firing glass comes from the sound. Wrapped in unison on the table at the close of a toast, the heavy feet cracked out like a volley of musket fire. Signed, enamelled Beilby glasses are genuinely scarce, and Masonic subjects like these rarer still.
The first one that came up that we know about was bought by the British Museum in about 2009 for £12,000. Then one sold for £8,000 and another one sold for £6,000. But yours, I know, would fetch today at auction, you'd get somewhere like £16,000 the pair.
Wow.
So look, I mean, what a pleasure. These are by far the most expensive glasses that I've ever had in 16 years on the roadshow. So I am so made up with these. So cheers to you and William Beilby.
Thank you.
It's about rarity.
You see how they just cross over and over down into the base there. So often when you get something like this, it's been dulled with polishing and so on over the...
Well, I've only cleaned it 4 times since I've had them.
4 times, right. Have you used them?
Not for wine, no.
No. What have you used them for then?
Well, we mostly had them in the cupboard where we could see in the glass case.
Oh,
Paul Storr is the name English silver collectors say with reverence. Apprentice to the Swedish-born goldsmith Andrew Fogelberg, he became the supreme craftsman of the Regency, working through the great firm of Rundell, Bridge and Rundell before setting up on his own. His mark, the linked letters P and S, is among the most coveted and most forged signatures in British silver. And the date on these jugs matters. 1838 was the very year Storr laid down his tools and retired. These are the work of a master at the close of his career.
We've got a pair. Really, we should be looking at a value of somewhere around 30,000 plus.
What? Wow! That's fabulous!
So a little improvement on the 50,000.
Oh, that's wonderful!
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next. And there are plenty more incredible appraisals waiting for you on the channel. Go check them out.